Hello and welcome to Talking Points here on WESN Content Capital. My name is Keaton Shaw.
And I'm Sean Michael Small. And Keaton, do you realize what day today is?
It's Wednesday.
No, Keaton. It's the 500th episode of Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, crikey. We've been doing this for 500 episodes now.
500 episodes.
And we're still here?
Somehow.
We're doing something right.
Even though TSCT keeps trying to interfere with our phone lines.
That's okay. We forgive them.
No, you forgive them?
No, I can't forgive them.
I might believe that I forgive them. I don't know about if I believe you forgive them.
I haven't forgiven them as yet, actually. TSCT, you have to do a lot to get my forgiveness. You really do. But 500 episodes, wow.
Yeah. One of the main things I think about is the number of different people we've spoken to, but also the callers, because, when we first started getting call-ins, we had some regulars, and then that changed over time to the point where now, it's difficult to say who's a regular because we haven't heard from some people. They pop back in, new people pop in all the time. It's rather interesting, and the variance of the opinions that we get from the public is also quite interesting and sometimes ironic.
I appreciate any feedback. In fact, I'm very much open to any public individual, anybody from the public official expressing their thoughts and opinions. But 500 episodes, that's quite a remarkable achievement. I think we've done pretty well. And, we've gained a lot, actually, over those 500 episodes. We've gained a lot of experience. We've gained a lot of dark circles under our eyes. We've gained a lot of bags under our eyes. We've gained a lot of weight. And we've gained a lot of grey hair. So kudos to 500 episodes.
I mean, when you think about it, it's only 100 weeks on average. So that's 2 years, basically. But it's a little more than 2 years. But it's a lot of talking. It's a lot of talking.
Talking Point has actually lasted longer than the Indian Expo in Macoya.
Really?
We're doing something well.
Really?
Yeah, they actually finally took down the structure.
Yeah, but when they go in for donkey's years?
So then I think...
I lost track. I just knew that they had, a final closing down, we really mean it this time, sale, the last, 10 times that I saw it. And then I just kind of stopped paying attention. Well, folks, this is TNT, and if that's not an ironic way to state that Trinidad's not a real place, let's continue with the daily review. So we will get into more about the crime symposium and that situation a bit when we welcome our Wednesday contributor. But there is one thing that came out actually from a story before the crime symposium, and that is, of course, the issue with police not wearing body cameras. It came out from a report of PCA. Then yesterday or the day before, the commissioner said, you must wear body cameras, sent down the orders. Cool. Now the Social and Welfare Association is saying, well, we need retraining on the body cameras because the officers only ever got training once and never again. And first of all, I just find it rather ironic. We're not talking about I need training in some sort of software package to do my job, or I need recertification with firearms. Talk about a body camera, right? I'm not entirely aware of how complicated it could be. On one hand, I don't know if I accept the president of the Social and Welfare Association. But on the other hand, to be fair, how hard is it to ensure that the officers under your command are proficient with a body camera? Because again, I'm pretty sure there should not be that much settings to a body camera, right? I'm pretty sure you're not focusing on white balance in a body camera. You're not syncing it with all sorts of other devices and digital clocks. And, I understand it's a technical piece of equipment, but usually, how much training do you need to use your phone? And I'm pretty sure your phone's OS is more complicated.
Could you imagine trying to arrest an alleged criminal, right? Allegations before them, and they're saying, "Oh, officer, is that a body camera? Are you getting my good side?" And then you have to frame it up on white bags, right? Imagine that. But the thing is, I don't find it entirely hard to believe that they actually need training. And the reason because is if you've never used something, even though you've put it on you, I think we're going to need some sort of guidance as to how to operate it.
So in theory, they're supposed to have gotten initial training, right? The irony is they might basically be admitting, yeah, we got the initial training, but we've never used them, so we've lost proficiency. Because if you were using them, then it stands to reason, you would not have fallen out of practice. Again, this is not a whole computer that they're learning to use. This is just a camera, which I don't believe has that much complication to operate once you are just shown how to work it.
I think we're just idling with excuses over simplistic things. I agree with you. It shouldn't be that difficult to operate a body camera. I mean, I've seen what body cameras look like. I actually have worked with these body cameras previously. But honestly, it doesn't take that much. It's a very simple device, and it could actually be a very powerful device when it comes to prosecution or when it comes to any allegations that may arise during police operations. That being said, I suggested it yesterday and I will say it again, I think it's deliberately not turned on, because if you were trained once, right, as the union leader has suggested, you would understand that proper procedure, as outlined in other nations, is as soon as an officer has made a stop or is part of any police operation or exercise, they're supposed to switch on their camera as they exit the vehicle. It's another thing, like in the United States, it's very hard to compare because it's two different jurisdictions and two different sets of standards that are in place. But I don't know, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of this, when a police officer makes a stop and a single police officer gets out of the vehicle, they always put their hand at the back of the suspect's car, right?
Okay.
And that practice is simply to get your fingerprints on the vehicle, the police officer's fingerprints on the vehicle. Should anything go wrong, they're easy to get the officer's prints on the vehicle as part of any sort of investigation. And prior to that happening, as they get out of the vehicle, they switch on the camera and record absolutely everything. I can't understand if you've done this, if you're familiar with this after one training session, what you need again. It's not like it's a gun where you need refreshers training every year, every 2 years. That's not the case.
And the thing is, one of the things to note is, with a gun, it's not just do you know how to shoot a gun. Because it's not that difficult to shoot the gun. The idea is a gun is something that you need to practice in order to continue to fire accurately and well. And then also you need to be certified to ensure, listen, we want to make sure that you do not forget or overlook safety procedures and how you handle this firearm. So all that is part of it. One is a certification to say we trust in how you'd use this, and the other one is to say you've put in enough practice time to use this well. Turning a camera on and off, for the most part, is not something that requires 10,000 hours before you master it. I'm pretty sure there's no such thing as camera power button mastery, in any job spec. Now, interestingly enough, the president of the association, he did say, well, they haven't used it within the last 3 months. And again, because we have devices every day, so I don't really understand how is it that with such a relatively straightforward device, you're going to fall out of proficiency through lack of use for 3 months. Because, you get a new phone, you don't need training to learn, to be taught how to turn your new phone on when you get it, because I've never been trained on this model. It's a new model, I need training.
You also have to,
if it's our procedures, I could understand that, but again, that to me is a bit nitpicky.
I also think it's prudent, and if we have an understanding of the brand of body camera that is being utilized, because I don't know if we've just gone and purchased some makeshift model of body camera. Right? I don't know. I don't know the quality of the equipment or the devices that we have procured.
And it might be inconsistent and a lot of factory defects.
Exactly. And what is the
yeah.
and what is the upload facilities? Because as far as I'm aware, again, with body cameras that are available, and even the body cameras that some of the major law enforcement agencies use throughout the world, I think the brand is Axon, if I'm not mistaken. It uploads wirelessly, so it's recording,
right?
And the connectivity uploads wirelessly to exactly. So you have to wonder again. So have we procured proper technology?
So procedures around the proper use of the cameras, not so much the operation of the camera itself. That could be where we could have a justifiable argument for the need for training, in part because this is the catch-22. This is where institutions eventually have these kind of nonsense training sessions that body held out to the employees, because when you make instances such as this, that may or may not be in complete good faith. But I will give you that. I was also thinking that to some extent. Just on the procedural side, the upload is also a technical issue as well, not just procedural. And that's a good point. But we need to move on before we run out of time. And moving on to the next story, well, just to hit tourism quickly in Tobago, Tobago hoteliers have been disappointed by Easter revenues, the outcome of what should have been a pretty good vacation time. Traditionally, Easter is more or less booked out. It's one of the top holidays, revenue earning holidays for Tobago hotels in the year. These are important because things like Easter and the August part of the vacation, but also now more recently before COVID, July, those things, the revenue earned is then helping make up for the lack of revenue in other parts of the year. But we're back to the question with regards to transportation between the two islands being insufficient. And we've now hit that roadblock, because I've said I don't know what the answer is, because both Air and Seabridge lose money, considerable money.
I think one of the arguments put forward as well is that if you had the same number of flights at different times, could that help the situation? Because some of these flights, from what I understand, there are many empty seats. In fact, a lot of standby passengers are put onto these flights during the day because of the empty seats. So I'm just wondering if Caribbean Airlines were to do an actual assessment.
Is that a normal week, day-to-day thing, or is that holiday period thing?
Well, speaking specifically during the holidays, during the week. During the holidays, a completely different story. But I'm speaking all around about inter-island transportation. But over the Easter vacation, even over the Grace weekend, I remember seeing Caribbean Airlines having to utilize the 737, as I think that used to be the last flight to Tobago, the 737 at night. But again, shifting the time...
Isn't supposed to be a 737 on your regular rotation to Tobago?
That was the last flight during these heavy weekends.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, but if they were to shift the time, I think it would prove more efficient. With respect to Easter in Tobago, I didn't expect it to be a great outlook for hoteliers in Tobago, because honestly, I don't think people actually have the revenue or the resources to actually enjoy.
Yeah, the extra money.
Even a simple thing like a trip to Tobago now is proving to be a luxury.
The thing with week-to-week travel on ordinary weeks, you might be right. Better to put more flights after work. That might help. But generally speaking, I don't think it'll make that much of a difference, because just overall, that goes back to my first point. Those normal weeks are when hotels don't earn as much, because there's just not that much people coming to visit Tobago, particularly during weekdays. You'll get some on the weekends. So Friday, perhaps, where if we have people, and maybe they've thought of this, have more of your flights later into the afternoon, evening as possible, because people tend to try to fly after work, right? But then, of course, it's who want to fly, who don't want to fly, and them hours and blah, blah,
Forgive
blah,
me
blah.
if I'm not looking at you, if I'm on my laptop. You know what I'm doing right now? I'm actually going on Caribbean Airlines website
To try and
see.
Well, as you're doing that, final story for the morning. Just a little bit of positive news. It's not necessarily surprising, but there are now signs of, a reduction in COVID-19 just in general. We have now reached a point where the average deaths per day is, I believe, less than one. I'm not if I'm getting that reading that stat right. Rolling 7-day average of new deaths, less than 1. The number of deaths reported for this last week that ended April the 18th, that is yesterday, was 2. So we are way down from 1 death a day, which I am thankful to see. We still have some positive cases, but it's within the realm of this is the new normal. 45 active cases, 93 new positive cases. I'm just happy that the death average is down and the rolling 7-day being less than 1. That's a good sign where we could, I'm now anticipating a day that comes when the actual number just would be 0.
So, with respect to COVID-19, I think we have to understand that we're still in a pandemic. We're still very much interacting. And the number of cases that are being reported are not reflective of the true figure, because those are cases that are being tested within the public domain. Private tests, and I say people who do that test via home testing kits, and those numbers are not being reported. So the number may actually be higher than it is, but overall to suggest that cases, there's been a slight decrease. I hope that trend continues, because it's the public health system I'm more concerned about. The facilities that are being put towards COVID-19 treatment. I spoke to a doctor about 2 weeks ago who said that Cuba was still very much packed. But the severity of the cases and the number of deaths, they've seen a reduction in that. Quickly going back to the Tobago story, I looked up a flight for tomorrow's date. The next available flight is on Sunday, and to return, the next available flight is Wednesday.
This is where the transfer fee, so if you miss your flight, you have to pay the $50. That was to solve this, because you alluded to it. Most of those booked seats are not actually going to have people show up to fly them. And I'm not too sure what more Cal could do. That's what the transfer fee was for, to basically have a small financial penalty for just flippantly booking and then not showing up. So people who want to book, well, in this case, Keaton is just probing. But those who want to book, and I've been in that situation before when I was living in Tobago, it makes it very difficult. And you just have to trust in standby, and that worked most of the time, but not all of the time.
Could we test the system? After 500 episodes, I think we should test the system. I'll tell you what. I'll go to Tobago and do an episode of Talking Point.
Okay, folks, let's take a break. When we come back, we welcome our usual Wednesday contributors. Stay tuned. This is Talking Point on WSN, your content capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order, or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc? every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Safe and sound, that's how we'll get you to the biggest North Coast Jazz ever. No hassle and no worries. Park your ride at the Queen's Park Savannah. Hop on board a safe and secure shuttle with your $100 return fee, and that's it. Service begins at 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. and returns from festival grounds from 7 p.m. Park and ride, a $100 return fee, first come, first go shuttle service to festival grounds Blashy shares. No hassle and no worries. North Coast Jazz, May 27th. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Kenny Sport, Extra Foods, Mart's Liquor Palace, 14 Diego Martin Main Road, and WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, it's the 500th episode. How could we have the 500th episode without Karen Nurse-Shera, former Minister of Finance, Attorney at Law? Good morning, Karen. How are you on this fine 500?
I am very fine and very honored and happy, actually, that you mentioned it to me yesterday in our... We always have these discussions before, just in case. It doesn't just organically decide what we're going to talk about when we come on this show. We do discuss what we will be talking about. So he did mention it to me yesterday, and I feel very privileged and honored to be part of WESN and this show in the morning, which has gained a lot of popularity. Not only popularity, but a lot of respect among the listening public.
Well, yes. the segue might be kind of harsh, but we have several topics to try to get into on this 500 episode, yes. So we want to get into it. Tobago, of course, we've spoken about it, well, including with the minority leader, but former Minister of Finance here with her political experience and opinion. We actually have not spoken to Karen about what's going on with the THA and the launch of the new party. You have kept up to date with what some of the commentators out of Tobago have said. And while I am reluctant to fully agree with them, I have to admit, I can't say that they're wrong. I don't have an argument to put in defense of Farley.
Yes, so one of the major, so he launched his party officially on Monday, I believe, and it's called Tobago People's Party, which in itself, I don't know if that was such a wise decision, because it seems to limit the scope. Thank you, Sean. The scope of the party to Tobago, which I don't expect that is what he intended or shouldn't have it intended. So that was one thing that worried me a little. worried a little bit about that. But coming to the bigger picture, I have, it's early days, it's definitely early days as a party, just 2 days old, but certainly when as Chief Secretary, when he is Chief Secretary for the last year, the commentary coming out of Tobago has not been very encouraging. So we're not going to spend too much time on it because as Reginald Dumas, a very respected analyst, and has said, give him some time, and his time was 1 year, so we're going to give him some time. But some of the things that we are seeing, and which we should comment on, is the chamber, Donna Haddad, saying that little or nothing has been accomplished for the Tobagonians in terms of the economy and moving forward. And one of the promises that I understood that he made was that he would wean the Tobagonians off its dependency on the THA as a form of income and create independent sources of income. I don't know if you're seeing much of that, and that is very worrying. He's also said, which I do agree, and if you listen to the modern day economists and pundits, they're talking about taking instead of a top-down approach, is a down-up approach, and that is because, according to one of the shows I listened to 2 days ago, they've said that 65% of the global wealth is held by 1% of the person. So that is to give you an indication that he obviously wants to look at income inequality. To what extent has he been successful in dealing with the contractors? To what extent has he been successful in realizing the down-up approach? To what extent he has been able to wean persons off the THA and create a new paradigm for Tobago? The indications from Dr. Vanus James, where Donna Haddad has been extremely a little harsher as the head of the Chamber of Commerce in Tobago. And generally, even the naming the party, Tobago People's Party, the People's Party, fine. The Tobago are not too sure. So we'll give him time. And one thing I would say that as a general criticism of Farley Augustine is this, his accessibility. I am not talking about how often he goes on the microphone and gives public pronouncements, because having been a politician myself, an active one at some time, your words could come back to bite you. So I understand maybe his kind of reluctance, but he doesn't have a good track record since becoming Chief Secretary and now the head of this party as being accessible to the public, and that is not a good look for someone who puts himself as the People's Party. That's inconsistent with that. And I think there was one other issue that concerned me with Farley, because I wish him the best. It's early days yet, but he does need to make himself more accessible. And with the issue with the contractors and also with the hotels. Having large hotels with brand names, who does that help? They keep us being the helpers, the cleaners, all the positions at the bottom of the barrel. And I think what the intention was to increase income inequality by focusing on the Airbnbs, the guest houses, and creating far more opportunities for the micro enterprises. So one of the things he could consider, and the TTMA has spoken on that, is why the government, for whatever reason, has not been able to meet the kind of VAT returns that they had intimated in the budget. Certainly they should start with the Chow Kings. I don't know if they have VAT registration, but certainly the micro, which is not so micro as you might think, start paying them up so that they have liquidity, some level of liquidity to save their businesses, employ people and move forward. The bigger companies might struggle, but it's not the same. So that's my take on Farley Augustine, not Farley Davison.
I think your first point, I didn't even necessarily think about it until you just mentioned it. And it's true that we all looked at the then PDP, anticipating to see what they would do in Trinidad. And now, you know, the supporters could just, all they have is to hope that the THA situation and Tobago situation could stabilize. I think Trinidad now is a distant hope.
Is there, and that's the thing, is there stability within the THA itself? Because it seems as though you're not able to organize yourself as a party. I mean, I don't know what the big delay is, because as you pointed out yesterday, the social media page for the new party is empty. Yeah. There's not even a symbol. But as you have said before in the program, the THA Act does not necessarily recognize party, it recognizes the individual. The issue, however, is given that you've campaigned collectively and given that you've all made promises on the same lines, and up until this point, I honestly cannot point to one improvement or one development that has taken place in Tobago which has caught my eye. With regards to accessibility, Karen, I completely agree with you. It has now become even difficult for us to keep in contact with the executives of the THC, and even though there is a media group of which we are a part of, even trying to have a discussion with those individuals has proven, well, those efforts have proven very few to this point where, listen, you know what, does it even make sense? And I keep pointing out, and I think I pointed out yesterday, I don't think they themselves have a clue as to what's going on and what's going on.
Unfortunately, that is becoming more and more of a...
And therefore, you know what, we're just taking it step by step.
Yeah.
And they don't have time.
The thing is, I disagree with regards to the need for him to go through this process, except he and all did not push back against the whole party thing, and he accepted it, so now he has to follow through with it because he accepted it. But
accepted what?
That he had to make a party, even though the THA Act doesn't need
a party, yeah.
Well, to win the next election. I think that's
that's what
James'
politics is about at the end of the day.
I do wish that we could move on.
Sorry, you're not a politician, but he's a politician.
I know.
Right? And at the end of the day, that's what politicians want, to be the leader.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And that's the reality. I mean, that's it. I mean, you can't get away from that. But
well,
anyhow.
There are also those allegations.
But let's wish him the best. Let's wish him the best. Let's wish him the best, because as Reginald Demas, I don't know if the doctor is in front of his title. If it is, I apologize for not putting it in. But as Reginald Demas, who's clearly highly respected, he said give him some time. So I think we should do that, because now it is a chaos. You said nothing has happened in the last year. Yes, a lot has happened. A lot of chaos and bacchanal has happened. And so now he needs to try to put it together, and let's give him some time.
This goes to the hopes of seeing new political entities. That's my fear, that this might sour the population. But folks, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. We have a couple more topics to get into. So let's take a quick break now, and we'll get into them when we come back here on Talking Point on WSN, your content capital.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, 500 episodes. Big news of the week. They've wrapped the crime symposium there for the region. But before we get into that, because Karen has an interesting take that also caused me to rethink my thoughts on it. You have something else to add, just in general?
Yes, in general. Keaton, you can't help it. I must stop looking at you. They must take you off of me. I can't see you with your mischievous, not a mischievous little brain. But what I wanted to say very, very quickly, because sometimes, we are quick to point out all the negatives, which I will do soon. But I do think I really have to commend the Prime Minister, because I feel he has been the driving force behind it, with the restoration of so many of our buildings, because that is our heritage and that is our history, which our children and our grandchildren have a right to have. And whatever the history may be, it may have some negative thing, but let them understand. We can't just wipe it out. And I start with the Red House. Meal Flow was the most recent opening, which they did a few days ago. But we have the Meal Flow, we have Stallmeyer's Castle, we have the President's House, even the former Ministry of Agriculture. I mean, I am just absolutely elated to see that. I guess I see it because I'm seeing it for future generations, and the detail with which it is being done. There's no question, not only in terms of the restoration of the buildings, but the landscaping and the detail. So I give the Prime Minister and whoever else is behind it, I know his leadership had a lot to do with it. I give him full marks for what he has done, because there's never going to be a good time to do that, and we have to save our history. Yeah. So there we go.
One can say that those things are priceless. There's no way to replace them with just money alone.
Yes, and I think when I think about it, I think of my own grandchildren. Why must I go and say, once there was a Stallmeyer Castle here, and once there was a Meal Flow here, and once there was the White House, which is the second time it's been refurbished. What's the word?
Refurbished.
You helping me out a lot today, And then the President's House and the Red House and so on. It's so important that you can show it to them, they have tours, and let them know where they came from. So that's the end of that part.
So that's the good news. Now on to, well, I wouldn't say bad news, but an observation, a practical observation, because we just had this regional crime symposium. It looked good. It even, to me and all, it even looked good. But then you made a point, and it got me thinking, well, but what is it actually going to come out of this that's going to help us?
Yes, and that's exactly the point. As I consider it a form of deflection, a very good form of deflection, which is really another an opportunity to have a talk fest. But this time, our Prime Minister took the lead in it. It was on a scheduled meeting. So it certainly made him look as a leader, but a leader in what crime? And which of the countries that really have the crime problem? It's us and Jamaica, and all of the solutions. It's implementation, talking about it as a health crisis is really, it's no offense to you, Prime Minister, whoever else came up with that idea. But I just put in mind how the United States dealt with the whole issue of the drug, which is really behind. All you spoke about is the effect, You told us all about what is the effect of crime, But you didn't tell us what are the solutions there, because I think you have a very good idea what is the solution, as many people do have. And, is the emperor with no clothes? Someone wrote an article. I didn't say that. It was in the Express, Noble Douglas. No, I think it was, let me not get the wrong person. I think it was Martin Daly talking about the emperor with no clothes. People just saying what they want to hear. They know, and you know, and we know, that telling us about the cost of crime only reinforces the fact that you have failed to deal with it. And having this conference, and you leading the conference on something that everybody would have to agree on, when the real problem is not being addressed. I saw Israel Khan mention that why didn't they talk about the money laundering? Why didn't they talk about the human trafficking? Why didn't they talk about the drugs, which is at the bottom of, and feeding this? And on that point, Mia Motley, I guess they don't like you to talk too much about it, but I have to mention her, because Interpol set up an office, I think I've mentioned it before, I think about a year ago in their garrison, in their main office, and they've had great success in dealing with the interdiction of drugs. So the crime thing sounds like another talk fest. Are we going to have implementation? I saw we had the minister, who I like very much, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent. They are not members of the CCG. We are not members of the CCG. Jamaica is not a member of the CCG. Most of the islands in Eastern Caribbean are not members of the CCG. So I think it's only Barbados and Guyana, Dominica. And what that means is, on him calling for the death penalty, well, if he follows the case law on it, which I have had to refresh my memory, just as most recently in the cleaner in May, 2 cases that came to the people of the Privy Council on the death penalty. They say the death penalty is not unconstitutional, and the savings provision, which saves laws that were passed before independence, are still valid. The Caribbean Court of Justice has taken a completely different route, and the language has been very, very condemning of the position that we as independent countries take towards keeping in place what they call a calcified piece of legislation, that's the savings provision, reminiscent of colonial times. So is the death penalty on the table? Oh no. What they needed to talk about is what is the causes of the crime before you start talking about the effects. I mean, it's like, just last thing I will say on that, it looked like another form of deflection. You're running out of ideas of how can I deflect? How can I deflect? But all you just did is tell me that how much it's costing us to have crime high up on the agenda and how it's affecting our budget. So what are you doing about dealing with that?
Well, not only that, I mean, this deflection cost us a lot of money to host.
Yes.
But Karen, give the Prime Minister where credit is due.
Which is the credit on?
At least he was the leader in the deflection. He actually led
but he's good at that.
He took a first down approach at it. I give him credit for that.
But that is what he does best. Do you realize, especially on national security matters, both he and his minister, now he is the head of the National Security Council, and the Minister of National Security, they have almost said to themselves, it's not our problem. It's the police, it's the parents, it's this, it's everything else but them. Okay, but they know, as we all know, that we talked about it, the procurement legislation on another show I did. 2 major pieces of that legislation, have not been proclaimed. The procurement section 7 has not been proclaimed, and the disposal of real estate provision has not been proclaimed. So we are operating under whatever they're operating under, which they have said. When I had Munila Lalchal on the show, he said it's costing us about 5.1 billion per year in leakage because of the fact that we do not have a regulator in place. So before you start talking all of that talk, Mr. Prime Minister, pass the Revenue Authority, deal with the procurement, and proclaim the key provisions which you have not proclaimed, because without those key provisions, the procurement legislation is worth nothing. Instead of doing that, you do as you always do, blame everybody else, deflect, and your latest deflection is hosting a symposium. And I don't know who was impressed with it. It was nice to see all these people from all over the Caribbean come there, but has it brought us any closer to implementation and dealing with the cause, not the effect?
And there is the thing. All of the talk is more or less, we've heard it before, call for the death penalty. We've heard that locally before. And I think ultimately it goes back to, well, yeah, it's just talk. It's just talk.
And in fact, you realize what they focus on was the effect of the crime, not a cause. Just let me just say one other thing before I let you interrupt me. I let you interrupt you. You know, it is just noteworthy. I am not saying it is so I don't want anybody jumping down my throat. But I do know I'm not the only one. Many people who I consider to be very brilliant people have said it to me privately. When it was supposedly with drugs, with the crack cocaine and the cocaine, the code words were inner city, and you know, we know what they meant, right? At that time, they were thugs, they were criminals, lock them up, 3 strikes and you're out, very rigid probation requirements, so sometimes you started spending more time having a little ounce of marijuana than you spent for the actual crime. Suddenly, in America, when it hit the Midwest, you can interpret Midwest and inner city how you want to. Suddenly, when it became a Midwest problem with the meth factories and all of these young people from the Midwest being hooked on drugs, suddenly it turned into a health crisis. And we have to rehabilitate. They're not thugs. They're not criminals. So now the Prime Minister taking crime and borrowing from that playbook to talk about how we have a health crisis in Trinidad is to deflect from what is really what his responsibility is. And I would just say one last point is, just one. one last point. If you wanted to really, really deal with the crime, as one, and I think CARICOM has asked them to write to the United States, so that was a very good outcome. But if you really, really wanted to deal with it, he would partner with the Interpol, which is made up of the US, made up of a huge international organization. He can partner with them and work with them to deal with the disruption of the drug trade. Because once they do that, they're going to deal with the money laundering. And yes, we're going to have a hard time, and at the same time creating opportunities for young people. And we've got to do it because look where people have reached, that they are afraid to leave their homes
so
in
then
the evening.
I wonder if, coming out of the symposium, I wonder if we've finally answered the question, who are the criminals? Who are the real criminals?
So we have to move on because Karen has something else that she wants to talk about. So for the sake of that, I know, Professor, you're going to call in, and I agree with you. We are not enforcing our rules. There is no law and order. Well, just in general. But
in where? In the country or on the show?
In both.
Oh, I don't know.
So let's move on. And the solar park, it had its sorting ceremony last week, Thursday. Of course, energy and the economy are 2 major topics for Karen. It's interesting because it seems as though there was justifications given for Trinidad's new green initiatives. But I'm not too sure by it on how effective they're going to be.
So I just want to say very briefly, and this is from the papers, not me. Since 2018, BP and Shell, these are huge players in the global market. So this is not some Trini part companies who pushing back. And since 2018, the solar energy project was supposed to have come off the ground. In the first report I read, the reason given why it did not come off the ground was licensing. They could not get the license to begin the project. And what has happened, as we know, that the cost of providing electricity to the electricity providers, PowerGen, TGU, etc., to TNTech, has risen from the 4 cents per kilowatt per hour to 6 something. So this Regulated Industries Commission, which is now looking at raising the price of electricity, it has only had the effect, I think, of complicated matters, because the idea was that the solar energy would replace some of the natural gas that was being used to generate electricity. Yes. Now that Shell and BP are telling you this is how much it's costing, it is going to mean, it has to mean that they are not going to sell their solar generated electricity for less than the $6, which is higher than the natural gas. So what it does mean is that we have to prepare for natural gas prices, for electricity prices to go up. In the meanwhile, in today's papers, Shell drilled a dry well. It's the second one, I believe. And what we do know is that oil is still trading at 2 something. What we do know, ammonia is trading at quarter of what it did. And what we do know, which we don't have time to look into, is to look at the fact that I believe, I do not have a crystal ball, as the minister not have a crystal ball, but I do believe that the geopolitical aspect of the oil is definitely going to keep oil prices high. And last point was because when I spoke to Sean, because we have these very animated, that's a nice way of putting it, very animated conversations. He said to me, so he made me look it up, which was a good thing. He says, yes, but Karen, no matter what you say, remember, Russia is in a thing because so many countries have been put a cap. EU has put a cap from February the 5th and taking oil from Russia. UAE and Saudi Arabia, the best friends of the United States, they also will not take it. But guess what? April 18th, the look you gave me there is to say, Karen, I didn't exactly see that. But in any case, the April 18th report is showing that the ability of the America to affect Saudi Arabia and UAE is waning. And in fact, Russia diesel jumped 33% from Russia to Libya, Egypt, Tunisia. India is acting, 1/3 of its arrivals are coming from Russian oil in March. Diesel, which is all this is refined oil, has increased to Turkey, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, naphtha, fuel oil, crude oil, Asia and the Middle East, Tunisia, Libya. So what they are saying, there's an acceleration in exports of diesel to Saudi Arabia through direct ship-to-ship or from or ship-to-ship or ship-to-ship or direct transfers. Bottom line is, it shows the waning influence of the United States among its key allies in the Middle East and a rise in the fuel oil exports. That's all I wanted to say about that.
No, my thing
that's yesterday. Yeah?
The wider geopolitical implications, because it seems to be more acknowledged that BRICS and the G7 are eventually going to become political blocs at odds with each other more than what we've seen before. Exactly. I'm not so confident in the long-term prospects of BRICS because they have their own issues, including the bill of whatever Russia's
EU
bill
doesn't have its own issues? Look what happened with Brexit.
No, I understand that, but I think people look at the G7's problems and they don't necessarily look at
You know what you have to look at? What you have to look at is this combined effect of the BRICS countries to create their own currency. What you have to look at is the Southeastern Asian countries creating their own equivalent of an IMF. What you have to look at that the major players, Brazil, Russia, China, India, are prepared to trade bilaterally in their own currencies. What you have to look at, which is what I don't think I mentioned on this show, is that no, I did not. Bonds, treasury bonds, are losing value.
Actually, you did.
I did?
Yes.
You have a good memory, you know. I'm losing value, which is why they say the Fed keeps on raising it. What I am trying to tell you, what I think, this is a concerted, determined effort of these countries, from the BRICS countries and other Asian countries, to remove the dominance of the United States using the petrodollar, to stop using their power to create embargoes on these countries, just as what we have. Why they didn't build the Shell pipeline? Why we didn't build it? America say we can't build it. So what they are saying is, we are going to come together and we are going to break the dominance of the US. They can no longer be printing US dollars as they have been printing without any assets to back it up. That is what is happening. So yeah. I do not have a, what you call it? The thing that is to look into the future. I don't have the crystal ball. But what I am seeing is of consider, and it's reflected in the price of natural gas and oil today.
Meanwhile, we might have spy versus spy right across the road in Maraval between China and the United States.
I actually remember doing some research on this. What Karen is raising was one of the theories. It was a theory that was floating around that actually led to the downfall of Gaddafi, where he was trying to, he was pushing to try and empower African states to break away from the dominance of the United States dollar, because the resources of minerals, oils, and gold in Africa
yes.
is far greater than the reserves available in the UK, in the US and whatnot. And it was his idea to push away from that dominance of the US.
Actually, even before that, at the end of World War II, we have to remember how many Trinidadians played such a big role. Ghana was the first country in Africa to, and you know who was behind it?
The West had a lot of
yeah, but you know who were the papers behind it? George Padmore from Tunapuna, right?
Yes.
CLR James, Cozy Harris from Dominica, he wrote their constitution for them. And what Americans were afraid of, Europe was afraid of, they were pushing now to have their own equivalent of a union, and that they did not want. So it started even from those days.
The only thing, though, is that one could argue Africa is more being, what is the word, colonialized via economic means from China, not so much America at this point.
I think we have to go for a break for our news. But Karen, I like your Sean impersonation. Well done. Anyway, we have to take a break now. I'm going to return. We'll open the phone lines. We'll be right back.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Regional leaders agree to ban use of assault weapons. 2 more killed overnight. Regionally, St. Lucia averaging 2 homicides per week. And internationally, 1 dead as multiple-story car park collapses in New York. Now for the details. As the 2-day regional symposium on crime came to an end yesterday, regional leaders agreed to ban the use of assault weapons in the civilian populations of their respective nations. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley made the announcement while delivering closing remarks at the regional symposium Violence as a Public Health Issue, the Crime Challenge. Dr. Rowley said CARICOM leaders also intend to write to the United States President and his administration for a greater effort in preventing the manufacturers of these killing machines and projectiles from having the profit-making outcome that is killing our people and destroying our society.
We are saying that we do not require those weapons within our society in a commonplace way because of the outcome of their presence in this society. So we can continue to provide personal protection with a certain amount of handguns in the population.
Dr. Rowley said the leaders are asking the United States that the same way they fought to prevent cocaine from going up north to poison their community, the region now wants the U.S. to fight with us to prevent the guns and ammunition from coming into our territories. Well, the bloodshed continued with 2 more gun-related killings overnight. In Aranguez, a pharmacist was shot and killed. Dead is 42-year-old Chevelle Ramjatan of Tacarigua. He was gunned down at his business place. Meanwhile, in Malabar, Arima, a woman was shot in her home at Daniel Trace. She has been identified as Cornella Saunders. She was reportedly shot in the neck by a stray bullet and died at hospital. In regional news now, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre has told the Caribbean Community Forum that St. Lucia is currently averaging 2 homicides a week. Pierre, responsible for national security, spoke at the regional symposium, Violence as a Public Health Issue, the Crime Challenge in Port of Spain. He said St. Lucia's experience demands urgent new approaches to its violent crime problem. In international news now, 1 person has died and 5 others were injured when a multi-story car park partially collapsed in New York City, officials say. The 2nd floor of the 3-story structure in Manhattan's financial district collapsed first. Authorities said all the workers in the building have been accounted for. Well, that was your News of the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
artists you'll meet. The sounds will astonish you. Superb voices, new artists, simply refreshing. Celebrate amazing. May 27th, North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds Blanchishes. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Kenny Sport, Extra Foods, Mart's Liquor Palace, 14 Diego Martin Main Road, and WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook.
That's in here.
I think even though we break for news or we take commercial breaks, the talking point doesn't go for a break. Karen and Sean continue their vigorous debates off air.
You were in it today a little bit.
Yes.
Yes. So you don't
try and hide.
No. Don't be Mr. Switzerland here.
You know, right?
Not be Mr. Switzerland here.
I made one little correction.
Okay.
A correction.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Keaton knows best, apparently.
Well, thank you, Sean. After 500 episodes, you
I
finally
said
admit
apparently. Don't you understand sarcasm?
No, anyway.
500 episodes and it's still the... Oh, gosh, boy. Karen, you see what I have to deal with?
Still a long way to go.
Anyway, let's open up the phone lines. But just before we put the phone numbers on the screen, it's time for the question of the day. And Keaton, if you could give the people the question.
Sure. Following the conclusion of the CARICOM symposium, what do you expect to come from it? I think we've gotten Karen's take. To say the next time, we've gotten Sean's take. So now you can share with us your thoughts and opinions. Following the conclusion of the CARICOM symposium, what do you expect to come from it? We have Tunapuna on the line with us. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, caller.
I'm calling from Tunapuna. You wish me to go ahead right now?
Yes, go ahead. You're live on here.
Okay. Good morning to the panel. First of all, let me congratulate you on the improved format these discussions are taking place.
Thank you.
And, yes. And further, in terms of the discussion on the crime symposium, I agree with one of the suggestions, that is the collaboration in terms of technical expertise. Namely, they spoke about the forensic crime lab.
Yeah.
And I would like to go further in terms of this collaboration because it's very cost effective. The question of having the police service where you have exchange of competent persons from the other Caribbean islands. I do recall that several years ago we had at the senior level persons from Barbados, policemen that is, and they did exceptionally good service. And I think, let's face it, most of the Caribbean islands would experience this sort of challenges as far as crime is concerned.
Caller,
so
thank
if
you.
we had the interchange of
very
the
quickly.
police service, I'm sure they can find creative methods of doing this. We will solve two things. We'll have better crime detection, and secondly, where we have the problem with respect to, people being sort of wary of certain policemen and whether they,
Yeah. Okay. All right, caller. Thank you very much for your contribution this morning.
We'll comment on that, those points. We have another caller that's been waiting from Tobago. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Kitan.
Good morning.
And good morning, Karen. I hope I'm coming across clear because that caller was coming across as if he was underwater. As to your question, I personally expect absolutely nothing to come from the end of that symposium. They're following in the footsteps of the United States with their war on this, war on that, war on drugs, war on terrorism, war on this, war on that. Their war on guns simply means war on the little man on the street with the gun. So we can expect to see more of the little boys in the BTAM and those places being heisted away and put in jail. And the big man on the yacht out there in the ocean who's actually bringing in the guns in crates. These guns are not coming in one at a time in no cornflakes box and no this, and they finding one gun here, one gun there. That ain't making no money for nobody. Gun running is a business, is a big business, gun running. Just as drug running in. I'm talking billions of dollars, okay? So these guns are coming in by crates, and they're going right past customs because somebody's getting money in their pocket to make sure that these crates go by. Don't check that container right there. Check this one. Don't check that one, and so forth. So their war on guns is simply a war on the people, war on the little people. It's going to fill up the jail. And what you can expect shortly, probably in Trinidad and Tobago, is private prisons. They're going to say we can't manage the prison system. We now need private prisons. And that is simply enslavement all over again.
All right, caller, thank you. But we have another caller that's been waiting right after you. We have another caller, I believe, from Tunapuna.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning to the panel.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning.
You're
morning
here.
to the panel.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I have an TSTT problem with my phone, but I'll make it quick.
My sympathies.
I agree that they had a consultation among all the CARICOM members. And I like how they make good orators. They had a meeting and they made a suggestion. But we want action and urgent action, because whilst every second come or every day come, we have a lot of innocent people losing their lives. And valuable people who are there to create employment for our population, they are at risk very much. People in their homes at risk very much, or innocent children, everybody, even the schools. I'm so much afraid, and right now I'm taking it on because psychologically it's affecting me to see what is taking place. Yeah. We need to have urgent action. We need to have fast and quick justice and put everything in place. And we need to put some stern, very stern ways to prevent these people from doing what they are doing. Lock them up, jail them, whatever, and a life for a life, whatever. Bring Moses law in, and it will work right now.
Okay, caller, thank you very much.
A tooth for a tooth.
Thank you, caller.
Listen, I mean, in dry season, imagine there's water on the line. Anyway, we have a call on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
You know, Sean, yesterday, you forced some of us to comment on that. I did not want to comment on that crime symposium until today. And let me tell you something. I looked at a lot of it, and it ain't going to make no difference. I was vexed with myself that I wasted so much of my time during the day hoping to see something come out, something different, to hear something different. And it was just a big talk shop. We dress up and we come in the Hyatt and take a trip from whatever island, and it was so upsetting.
Yeah.
That's my first point. And quickly on my second point. You commented on Tobago. There are enough spaces for flights, and there is enough space on the boats for an island like Tobago. If you look at the number of sailings per day, and number of flights per day, the problem seems to be that some people in Tobago want to have flights when they want. When I want to go to Trinidad, I want a flight. When I want to come from Trinidad to Tobago, I want a flight. There is enough space. The problem is, right now, it's an economic situation, There's nothing happening because people are so concentrated on just living.
Yeah.
That travel no longer, even to Tobago, is no longer As Tito said, it's a luxury now.
Yeah.
Okay, caller.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. We have another caller waiting right behind that caller from Chagonas. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
I don't know about the rest of the Caribbean islands. I haven't there for some time, but they used to enforce their laws very well, and crime was very low. Trinidad, however, the problem with crime, as I have repeated on a number of occasions, is a breakdown on law and order. Order is achieved by enforcing your laws, which we don't enforce, and we have a methodology for enforcing. That's what the minister is supposed to do, and prepare annual administrative report, which we don't do. I heard nothing about that. Right? So that I expect things will continue to go down. And secondly, on the question of local government. But I know you don't like me listening to your early morning program, but it's very interesting.
I like you listening to
and you can't call in on that program, so I have to wait. But now, and they talk about local government, and they talk about entrenching local government in the Constitution. The way Trinidad, well, that is not so. Local government is something that central government gives to certain areas to carry out certain central government functions. And if they don't, what a lot of people don't know, they could take it back. In fact, the first one they did in Trinidad was the city of Port of Spain. And the city of Port of Spain started playing it cool, they took it back.
Yeah.
And that in the end led to burning down the Red House and all that. You see? And the thing about local government, they're supposed to do certain things.
Yes.
And raise certain monies. The government have taken away that ability to raise the money and say they will give them the money.
All right, caller. Sorry, we have to cut you here because we have another caller waiting right behind you. This time from St. James. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, lady and gentlemen. Beautiful program as usual. You always have me feeling so uplifted. Anyway, I don't know about the Prime Minister. People are really like we still living in the 60s and 70s, boy. You want to ban illegal guns and so on? I mean, come on, man. I just want to add one quick thing. Is that I've been observing throughout the world in all the ports like down Chagaramas, all those huge boat yards down there. In America, if you see how hot the police have all those ports, they even checking them for this.
Oh gosh. Telecom strikes again.
All right, caller from St. James, you can call back in.
Lady, I know the point he was.
Yes, and I think it was a good point too. We overlooked that. I mean, we've.
No, we have not overlooked it. You know what is the thing? Is everybody's talking about the effect. How about stopping it? You're talking about the thing and the justice system and this. How about stemming it at the beginning so that we do not have that number of girls? How about that approach?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're sorry that we were cutting the calls when you're making your points. It's just because of the volume of calls, the traffic. You know, we're trying to keep it short and sweet. Call online with us from Chagonas. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, morning.
A very good morning to the esteemed panel, especially my dearest Karen Nunes Teixeira. How are you, my dear?
Fine,
so, the answer to that question is an emphatic no. And nothing will come out of it. Normal rigmarole, especially in Trinidad. Secondly, Karen, I don't know if you could look into something for me. I have learned that since the past AG and this AG, so far, applications for commission of affidavits, none has been dealt with as far as I know. Can you probably do some inquiries? I know they want to have some new thing to have the commissioners be able to take oaths nationwide, but in the interim, so far it seems nothing is happening. And can someone tell me, has the DPP ever released his findings on Emailgate? And another thing, can someone tell Father Augustine the decent thing to do is to just dissolve the THA, call a new elections, because he is forming a new party. The people did not vote for his party under that name, and a decent thing should do, instead of gallerying himself, he should just say, here what, let me try under, get his licks, go out in the sunset and remain quiet as a lamb. Thank you very much, Karen. Such a pleasure seeing you and hearing you. You know, it's always a pleasure for me. So guys, don't feel so jealous, you know.
I think the last point is already a good point. What do you all think? I think that
last point.
Yeah, no, about in truth. You know, you start a party, but you really, that party was never voted into power. I mean, should you not dissolve the THG and then call a fresh election?
The problem is, to me, it's how it's unfolding and how it's being handled. The basic technicalities of it doesn't call for it, but he's not really inspiring a lot of confidence with how things are going. But the flip side to that is, I think if you call an election now, and we asked Kelvin Morris this, if he can't speak entirely, say, but I don't think the PNM is ready for another general election. So we're going to have one hell of a nonsensical election.
But you see, the reason why I'm saying that, remember when we had the 1818 and A.N.R. Robinson gave the government the PNM, Mr. Manning called a fresh election within 1 year, because he knew it was not the right way to be the prime minister of the country, in the sense that he let the country now decide what they really want, and you had the 41.
I mean, that's a good argument.
You know, from that point of view.
But the argument that Farley them have on their hands, yes, the PNM Tobago Council may not be entirely ready, but the voting public might not necessarily see that. Just remember that, how it matters.
No, I'll explain why that matters later.
Argument that Farley and them have on their hands is, even though we don't have a party, we still beat you 14-1 in the last elections.
Yeah.
You know, so that's it. But anyway, we have a call on line that's from Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
I haven't spoken to you, Karen. A special morning to you.
Morning.
Just want to comment on two things, which would be the Commissioner of Affidavits or even the Justice of the Peace. I was a notary public in the state of New York. And I came back home after graduating from John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and I've applied 15 years now.
Wow.
15 years, and I keep going into the office.
Wow.
Time and time again.
That's something we will look into for
just
sure.
Just a run around.
Crikey.
So something is definitely wrong with that section. As far as renewable energy is concerned, I want you all to take a different look at it, because I have been intimate with it through being the chairman of the OCUR, the Organization of Caribbean Utility Regulators, and I spent 5 years as a commissioner with the RIC. And Trinidad and Tobago has been lagging behind as far as renewable energy is concerned with all our Caribbean counterparts. So I'm asking you all to be very optimistic about the different hiccups and the things that are happening. At least something is actually happening. Presently at MIT, and I know that we have short courses in renewable energy, and we have plans to have a school for renewable energy. So there's nothing actually planned by the Ministry of Energy for it. So therefore, that is why things are happening ad hoc. You have this, as Karen mentioned, and we all know that Shell and BP were willing to go through with this project time and time again. And I'm not making an excuse for anybody, but bureaucracy in Trinidad and Tobago, the how they call it, being able to do business in a timely manner in Trinidad and Tobago. So we have those variables preventing us from actually going forward. But again, I want to ask you all to look at it optimistically, and we will get there eventually.
I hope so.
Thanks, and
have a good day.
Keep the topic on the burner. Keep the topic on the front burner. Thanks for the opportunity, Karen. You have a blessed day. I've learned a lot from you, Karen. You know that. You never told them that I was your marketing manager during the campaign.
You see?
Making revelations, eh, boy.
Thanks a lot.
Caller, I do look at it. It's just that the track record on the economic side has not been great with regards to what has been implemented globally around the world. That said, I especially look at new technologies because there's a lot of promise to deal with the deficiencies of the current wind and solar technologies. We've spoken about it before. I don't want to go into all of it. So it's just one of those things where it's going to advance, it's going to change and get better.
This is unreachable because, you know, I'm going to throw a little damper on the whole thing. You know, about 3 days ago, Germany, of all countries, disconnected their last 3 nuclear sources of energy.
Yes.
And the commentator said, would you believe that Germany has gone back to coal, is using coal? And not only coal, obviously, but they're actually using coal, the dirtiest of the fossil fuels.
Australia is the biggest exporter of coal.
Hold your breath.
Australia is the world's biggest
exporter of coal. Yeah, but Germany, the EU says, not us.
And that's the point.
Wind energy.
And that's the point.
It's politics.
Australia, who has also, you know, heavily been activist with respect to climate change and global warming. Out of all countries, you know. But
big complaints about China buying the coal.
Final caller on the line with us for this morning's edition of Talking Point. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mrs. Shara, and to you fine gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just want to say I observed that none of the carrier companies have discussed that the way women dress in this country right now and through the Caribbean, and even the young artists and that are coming up, and the older ones, that when they portray themselves in these pets and so on, it's so lewd. And I mean, young people seeing all these things. What do you think they're going to take example from? If something needs to be addressed, you can just dance all you want to dance, but dress properly, and don't have to expose themselves in those ways. It's a bad message for the young generation. And as far as where the high-power rivals come in the country, I don't know where the Prime Minister got this idea from, because the fact is, you can't even stop the illegal guns coming in. You can't even stop the high power from going to the hands of the criminals. And you're talking about asking America to stop manufacturing these things and selling it in the countries. Something is wrong with the thinking of the Prime Minister and his bunch of them. I'm sorry to say it, but I really don't like to describe people that way. But he needs to take stock of himself and think before he talks. Thank you for taking my call. Have a very good morning. And
have a good day, Colin.
Thank you, caller. Yeah.
And by the way, I want to tell you, the reason why I have water in the dry season is because your chairman said, Nangu, I think it is, that we are being proactive this time. We're not waiting for the water to go below thing. We are taking steps in advance. And that is what is supposed to be doing with crime.
That's the new water reserve.
What we're going to say is, in crime, be proactive.
May I just ask a question?
It's part of WASA's new plan. We have surface water, groundwater, and line water reserves.
Can I just ask a question?
You can ask me a question.
How could one be proactive in the middle of the dry season?
No, I think in all fairness, I think I understand. Honestly, I think what he was trying to say is that don't wait until it reach a crisis proportion to tell people turn off your tap, turn on anything. Put in those measures from early on so that it does not have to reach a point where we reach a crisis. But one of the things they do need to deal with is the flooding, because unless they deal with the flooding, you want to be proactive, deal with the flooding, because that's what's affecting food prices and that's what is affecting the livelihood of farmers. And you know that, Mr. Minister, whoever's the Minister of Planning and Development, put that on your
Why is the Ministry of Planning in Trinidad?
I don't know.
I don't know what we plan, CARICOM events.
Here's the thing, it's funny. It's funny that in one country, in 1 year, we will have issues potentially with water shortages, and then not too long after have flooding. One would think we could utilize the latter issue to help build up our reserves if we invest in the infrastructure to help with the former issue.
And enforce it all. The whole long and short of everything that we have said today is a lack of implementation of this government on every single level. That is what it is. They talk fast, and I think, except for the PNM persons who are on boards, who are chairmen, who are ministers, who have contracts, or who in some way, this is my genuine opinion, those people who feel in some way beholden to the thing, including the CPEP and the URP workers, if people would, those included, if they were given an opportunity to really say what they feel about how this government has performed, they will give them close E to an F, because no implementation.
And then they will be dismissed the
implementation. Next day. That's why they won't. That's why they go and clap the greatest. You saw the article by Martin Daly, the emperors, not emperor, you know,
Has no clothes?
emperors with no clothes.
Or the emperor?
He didn't say only emperor, he said emperors.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for Talking Point today. Karen Sheriff, thank you very much for your presence once more. Thank you for your knowledge.
And do you notice that Sean didn't give me a...
No,
he didn't give me any of that
I
today.
noticed Sean.
Look at him.
Sean almost took out your this morning, you know.
Don't worry, Sean. You know you and I are good friends. Don't worry.
Don't worry, Sean. Listen, after 500 episodes,
I feel attacked.
We still love you.
I feel attacked. What a way to close the show. Attacking Sean.
We love you.
After 500 episodes.
We love you, Sean.
Yes, Karen loves you, Sean. Anyway, this has been Talking.
I believe that. When you say it, I believe that.
I tolerate you. Anyway, I'm Keaton Shaw, that's Sean Michael Small, that's Karen Shara. This has been Talking Points, and remember, today is a good day to have a good day, and should things go well, and we can only hope that they do, we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.